This is the Samson Q9u, and no, it's not an SM7b Killer or whatever over-flattering things it's been called lately, I think due to the extended wait we had for this microphone and the hype built up around it. In fact, I can tell you right off the bat, as you can hear here, unprocessed, this mic actually sounds quite dark and lifeless. Not great, honestly. Usually that is my impression of most dynamic microphones and why I think they need post-processing and why they're kind of designed for it. But boy, oh boy, does this mic make the RE320 and SM7b sound amazing with their raw audio, which normally I don't feel, at least about the ElectroVoice mics. It doesn't mean this is a bad mic, however. This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get access to my own streaming service Nebula when you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below. I'm EposVox, the stream professor, and this is Samson's latest microphone, the Q9u. It is a broadcast/studio dynamic microphone that's supposed to be the big boy kind of professional follow-up to their fan favorite microphone for streamers, the Samson Q9u, which is a small little handheld stage-styled mic that does both XLR and USB, and for the price was an incredible value microphone that I still recommend to this day. Although again, I do feel you need a fair amount of post-processing to kind of back it up to really make it sound its best. This mic retails for $200, and we've been waiting for it since 2019. When I first saw this microphone in person at CES 2020, but of course we could not test it out, there were no audio samples, and they had no word when it would be coming, and it's finally here. This is a $200 dynamic microphone that maintains some of the greatness of the Q9u and its value that I really love to see here, namely being it is both XLR and USB. If we look on the back, we have the normal XLR port. You have a USB Type-C port. This does not need 3.0 speeds, but it uses a Type-C connector. In the box, it comes with a Type-C to Type-C cable, as well as a Type-C to Type-A cable, so you can use it with just about any computer. And then it has a headphone jack as well, because if you plug it in via USB, it also acts as a sound card. And you can use both the USB and the XLR simultaneously to get feedback in your headphones and things like that, while still getting the XLR run through whatever audio hardware you'd like to use. There is also a mute button. This may very well be the first microphone I feel like I have used that has a mute button on it that also works to the XLR output. Typically that only works for USB, it's like a software mute, whereas this is a hardware cut, a hardware switch for the microphone itself, even over XLR, which is pretty powerful and pretty sweet. It comes with this fairly beefy windscreen pre-applied, and if we pull it off here, we get a very similar design overall to microphones that you'd recognize. The ElectroVoice RE320 and 320, the Heil PR40, the Shure SM7b, and the Rode Procaster are the ones that come to mind for me personally. So this windscreen is meant to act, of course, as a windscreen as well as a pop filter. But of course, as is the case with the Shure SM7b, the windscreen itself does, kind of cut down on the higher frequencies a little bit. So you may want to remove it for a little bit of a more natural high end or brightness to your microphone. But then you may need another pop filter involved for the sake of plosives. That being said, I honestly did not find removing the windscreen to make a marked difference on this microphone's darkness. Around the back, you may also know two other switches, which will help with controlling your audio theoretically. You have the top one, which is a mids or presence boost, which I really appreciated on the Shure SM7b. I felt with my voice in particular, it helped kind of give it a little bit more liveliness or presence, as you might think, which for streaming or for content creation, you may actually want a little bit more, mids to kind of cut across whatever background sound you have. However, on this microphone, I did not find it to be particularly pleasing, and kind of added to the relative muddiness of the microphone. So I'm going to switch that on now. All right, we went from flat to the mids presence boost. Testing, 1, 2, 3. You can hear me with it now. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of this personally. Now, along with this switch, you have another one, which will be a high pass or low cut filter, which is to help roll off the bass a little bit. And in fact, the ElectroVoice microphones, both the 20 and 320, have bass roll off switches or high pass filters or whatever on it as well. And I typically apply this in my EQ in my post processing anyway, because I get a lot of complaints about the boominess of my voice and how microphones respond to that. However, they're doing something weird with this one. Let me go ahead and flip it on. All right, so now this audio has both the bass roll-off and the presence boost switches enabled. And apparently, according to the paperwork for this microphone, it starts cutting around the 250 hertz range, which is fairly high for a bass roll-off. Typically, you do want a little bit of cut there, but then you still may need some emphasis in the 125-ish hertz range, and then you start cutting under 100 hertz, like 60 hertz is typically what I do, and then I cut off very severely. We don't have any images of the frequency response of this microphone. I don't know why they haven't published it yet. That should be just standard process when you release a mic, but there's no frequency response graphs, so I can only guess here. However, it gets weird. Like, I don't know if you can hear it in this comparison now, but when I was doing my demos and testing back and forth, the normal bass roll-off I apply in my post-processing helps control the boominess of this microphone. This one just makes it sound tinny. So now I'm going to turn off the presence boost. So now this is with the bass roll-off enabled, but the presence boost disabled. So that one is set to flat, so you can hear how I sound with the microphone. I think the reason it sounds so tinny is because it is lopping off so much of the low end. And typically, I have to admit, I don't typically like the bass roll-off switches on most of these microphones, and I typically avoid them and just choose to add it in post for this very reason. I feel like it removes some of the pleasant qualities of the warmthness of my voice that I can accentuate better with a manual EQ curve in post-processing. But this one is the worst I think I've used out of any of the microphones. It just makes it sound really tinny. So I'm going to go back to completely neutral now. And moving forward, at this point of the review, moving forward a little bit, we're going to be having post-processed audio with a parametric EQ curve. And typically I don't talk about my settings for this because it doesn't matter to a whole lot of people, but my settings for this involved a lot more tweaking than I usually have to do with a lot of microphones. For this, I have my usual bass roll-off starting around 50 or 60 hertz at 48 decibels per octave, so a very steep curve. I have a little bit of a boost in the 125 hertz range because that gets the warmth going in my voice that I really appreciate and sounds more like how I sound in real life. And then I have a cut around the 250 hertz range, a fairly significant cut that I then have to bring back up around 500 hertz to flatten it back out. And I think that's where a lot of this mic's muddiness comes from, because if I had to describe the raw mic quality of this mic, it is boomy and muddy. Whereas something like the Q9u or a lot of cheaper dynamic microphones, they tend to sound thin or tinny or even like scratchy, which is a weird quality to describe, but it's what the Q9u sounded like to me. And you could work with that because you could add warmth back to it. This is just like so overpowering with muddiness and with boom that it was actually really hard to work with in EQ. Past that, I did a mids cut to help with some of the muddiness as well as you would typically do versus the mids boost that they apply here, and then just a slight boost in the highs just to get a little bit more of that clarity going. And then I applied a de-esser to get rid of some of those harsh S's and a single band compressor with 4:1 ratio, which is fairly standard. I like how it sounds after it's been post-processed, and this is my quick first impression. Here's how I'm going to process it in the moment, not necessarily what sound I would get from it if I really spent like weeks and months tweaking at it. But I have to say, I'm not super impressed with how it sounds. Now, for a $200 mic, you're competing not with the Shure SM7b or the ElectroVoice RE320, which are much higher tier of microphones, but instead you're competing with lower tiers of microphones. So I put it up against two microphones that you can get for basically the same price as the Samson Q9u. The Rode Procaster, which is one of my longtime favorite, like, kind of commonly overlooked microphones that people should try, as well as the ElectroVoice RE320. Now, both of these mics are more expensive than the Samson Q9u. You can currently pick up the Rode Procaster for $229 new on Amazon. You can get it for under $200 used. And then you can get the ElectroVoice RE320 for $250, I believe, on Amazon right now, brand new. And then you can pick it up for around $200 or less used as well. Now, typically, I might argue, like I have with webcams, that it's not fair to compare the used price of a product versus the new price of another product because they're targeting different price points. But I do still bring it up because I see so often, especially with audio gear for some reason, people get locked into these arbitrary budgets where I'm at X tier, I shouldn't spend more than X dollars, even though they want a specific sound. And if there is a specific sound or quality or attribute that you want, not saving up the extra $30 or $50 or not buying used and instead getting something that is a worse product or worse for your use case is only going to end in disappointment. And that's what drives me nuts about this whole let's kill the SM7B or gear doesn't matter discussion, is gear matters a lot. You don't need to have the most expensive, the most, flashy gear, but you need to have the right gear for you and for your work. And that means spending a lot of time figuring that out, and means spending a lot of time investing your time and energy into your gear decisions. Gear matters a lot. When you get stuck, say you really wanted the sound quality of the Procaster or the RE320 or even the SM7B, because you can get those used for $300 half the time. Let's say you really wanted that sound, but someone told you you shouldn't spend more than $200 on a microphone. This is the microphone you picked because it was $200, it was new, and it seemed okay. You're going to spend a lot of your time, a lot of your energy fighting with this microphone to make it sound as close as you can to an SM7B. The issue is that with these more expensive microphones and stuff, the sound quality that you're aiming at is the starting point for the sound quality for these microphones. If you EQ any microphone to sound like an SM7B or an RE20, you are EQing it to sound like they sound like to start with before you start EQing and post-processing those microphones, at which point they get even better. And so you're going to spend so much of your time not streaming or thinking about business strategies or whatever, but in your own head, frustrated, trying to fight with your microphone to make it sound like the product that you actually wanted to buy. So if you want a Shure SM7B, go buy it or save up for it, or buy a much, much cheaper microphone now to save up for it later, buy used, etc. The issue is there's this new weird kind of backlash culture interested in killing the SM7B that I don't really understand, because we had a similar backlash to the Blue Yeti a few years back. And this was kind of understandable because for years on YouTube, when no one had any audio gear experience, everyone pushed the Blue Yeti as the best microphone. And then a bunch of people bought it. Most of them used it wrong in the first place. And it wasn't really the best for their particular use case, because it's not. The SM7B is one of those tiers of microphones that for its purpose for streamers and for, a tier of before you get to unobtainium for gear, it is more or less the best that you can get, both in terms of sound rejection, the sound reproduction. It sounds a lot more natural than most dynamic microphones. For a wide gamut of reasons, it is one of the best, if not the best microphones. You don't need to make a microphone that beats that, because it's not going to happen. What people want is either the look, which to me, buying a microphone based on the look is insane, but if you want a black cylinder that looks more minimal, again, RE320, they have the new RE20 Black, which they have sent me, the Rode Procaster, the Aston D2 I reviewed a while back, the Golden Age mic I reviewed a while back. There are quite a few microphones that will look like this and sound the same or better. But a lot of people want the SM7B sound, and they want it cheaper, which is why they want to kill it, because they want a replacement that sounds just as good for much cheaper than that price, which is not going to happen. It can't be done. Even Shure, who makes the SM7B, they made the MV7 as like the SM7B alternative for a USB and XLR microphone. It doesn't sound close. Like, you can make it sound effective and good for what it is, but it's not the same microphone by a long shot. And pretending that you can have your cake and eat it too in terms of killing the SM7B, but also having the same SM7B quality, I think is misleading at best. And at worst, you're setting up a lot of people for frustration and disappointment as they go and try to use this microphone and obtain SM7B quality, which is nonsense in the first place, but whatever. And then they don't get there. And then they're really frustrated because they probably could have saved up the money and bought the SM7B, but someone told them they should only spend X number of dollars and instead EQ this to sound like it. And that's just not how microphones work, especially when you consider that the SM7B is one of the most shielded microphones for EMF and things like that, as well as one of the most, background noise rejecting microphones you can get while still sounding great. I'm just really frustrated at the whole scene right now, and a lot of this comes from even talking about best in the first place, which I can't stand. If someone asks me what the best product is, I do not answer them. I ask what their budget is and what they're hoping to get out of it, because the best is rarely something that you want. A lot of people get frustrated because they buy the SM7B as the best microphone and then don't pair it with appropriate audio equipment to handle it, and then it's not the best for them anymore, which is like saying a Red or an ARRI Alexa camera is the best camera, but then you get it and you don't have PL mount lenses, you can't afford the Cinebags or the batteries, and then you're like, what the heck? Same kind of situation here. That doesn't make it not the best, it just makes it not the choice you should have gone with. because you can't afford the best or you're not skilled enough to use the best yet. You don't want the best if you're not great or approaching the best. We've actually built our own video platform to help reduce our dependence on YouTube and keep us away from issues like this. My videos are higher quality there, ad-free, and often extended from the YouTube versions. This site is called Nebula, and we've partnered with CuriosityStream. It features YouTube's top education creators such as Legal Eagle, Thomas Frank, and Low Spec Gamer. CuriosityStream saw what we were doing for educational content and wanted to partner up. We've worked out a deal where if you sign up with the link below, you not only get access to CuriosityStream and their library of thousands of educational and documentary content, but you also get access to Nebula for free for the entire duration of your subscription to CuriosityStream. For a limited time, CuriosityStream is offering 26% off their annual plan, making it less than $15 per year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. Check out Conscious Capitalism to learn more about how many are thinking about capitalism and spending and making money in more ethical ways. Head to curiositystream.com/epos for the best deal on streaming and get access to both sites for under $15 per year. It's pretty crazy. Just do it. I've ranted for quite a bit here. Let's go ahead and flip through some comparisons of the raw audio compared to the similar price mics as well as the higher tier mics, so you can see what they sound like out of the box. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Oven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. Real quick here, we also have a talking while typing test with the Q9u here. I am using Box Royale switches, which is a little bit different than the switches I used in my previous videos, but it's what I'm using on my keyboard now. Talking while typing, talking while clicking, talking while clicking, and then we'll get our white noise test going here. Alright, we have white noise pointed directly at the microphone, coming around the right side of the microphone, coming around the back side of the microphone, coming back around the left, up top, and down below, and now we're back in front of it. Whee! Just to give you a general idea. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Samson Q9u, a wonderful microphone. Something I wanted to mention real quick that this microphone offers as a value other microphones, which is why I appreciate it. Because I dunked on it a little bit here, and yes, the out-of-the-box sound quality is not great. And if you're looking for an SM7b alternative, I think you'd be crazy to recommend this because the sound doesn't come even close. But in terms of value for $200, it is actually pretty solid, depending on what your needs are. If you're just after, like, pure arbitrary audio quality, then no, it's probably not the best choice. But if you're interested in like best in terms of like value of the actual microphone's capabilities, this is actually a really great value, and the same reason that I considered the Q2u a great value as well, because it provides you an upgrade path that you didn't have accessible before. You see, if you do go and spend $200 on a Rode Procaster or on an ElectroVoice RE320, you then also have to spend money on, if you don't have it, an audio interface or mixer that can power it and then take the input and give it to your computer. This is not the case for the Samson mics. Both the Q2u and the Q9u both have XLR and USB, so you can start with just the microphone. And this is the big monetary issue everyone runs into with the SM7b is they spend all their money on the mic and don't have enough money for the audio equipment. With the Samson Q9u, you plug it in through USB when you first buy the mic. You don't need to buy anything else other than a mic arm, and you're good to go for a little bit. And then later, once you've decided you want to invest more in yourself or in your business or in your equipment, or you figure out a specific need that you have, then you can pick up an audio interface, a mixer, a Go XLR once they come back in stock, what have you, and use it then over XLR. And then you still have that second USB output to utilize with a second PC, just for your sound card in the first place, yada yada. And that does provide more value in terms of functionality over these other mics, even if it doesn't sound as good. So that is something very important to consider that I want to leave you with here. And otherwise, product links will be in the description below. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more tech education and stream guides. I'm your stream professor, E+Vox. I'll see you next time.